So right off the bat, 'cause I know this video is pretty much me talking about elementary school explained. I just want to say that pretty much for the most part, it's how it usually is, being the fact of most kids going and kind of experimenting, doing stuff and stuff like that, playing sports, eating lunch, the normal stuff, learning the basic subjects, and was the reason why honestly elementary school is the best time period of school because it's where kids can actually learn the most. And I do think it is the most positive and it is the best because it's also where kids usually are in their defiant stage as well. So both sides between the school and their parents, they're getting lessons. Of course they're still so young to the point where they can't really understand. But I think the main thing about it is that since like I said, I'm personally about to go to high school. That's something I know is that elementary school, the thing with it, yeah, it's just being young and being a little kid, not really knowing, meeting other little kids, just messing around. And I think as it gets older, like eventually once you start getting to like the upper grades, fourth, fifth, and sixth, that's when it starts to kind of change because then you start to kind of realize certain things a little bit. Like you start to realize, okay, that's the key thing is realize. Not you don't know or you're not really getting it, you realize. So you start to, oh, okay, this or that, or you're still going through that childhood phase. And I feel like that's really the main thing about elementary school is it's a childhood phase, and that's the reason why I honestly can respect elementary school teachers and just that whole system of it because of the fact that it's the most beneficial to the kid and that it helps them in every way between physically and then just learning and stuff like that. And all because most of them are too young to really understand the true meaning behind everything. I mean, that's good. I'm glad that it's like that. So I think elementary school definitely gets a pass for sure. I think they did a great job on that, and that's my opinion on elementary schools and stuff like that. I do think that what's it called? I mean, I could get a little bit more technical with it, but I know with certain kids it's a little harder when they're younger. But overall, though, I still think it can work out for all the kids, and that's why I'm glad it is the one that has the most like grades in it because I do think it's the best as far as just helping the kid. Now there are certain things like bathrooms and just little stuff like that just is is terribly worse than as he gets older, but everything else goes better, and I feel like benefits the child way more than it would in any other type of grade system or any other period of time in school. Well, at though is it's also good because a lot of times you can tell early on the very defined ones and the bad ones that usually aren't really meant for schools, if that makes sense. Because I've trust me, I know people can tell when somebody's a bad kid. It doesn't matter how young they are. They can be literally say 6 or they can be 15. It doesn't really matter. You can tell when a kid or even anybody is really kind of bad or has that defiant trait in them for sure. So I think that's another good trait. Or if they're just a troublemaker or they're just kind of mischievous or we know whatever, I feel like you can definitely tell, which is another good thing about it too. So overall, it's mostly beneficial to the child and to the people and the parents as well, in my opinion. When I had the ability to do really well, but that's exactly how I would be. So that's the reason why I know that it can also even show traits of, them having a level of intelligence and stuff like that and awareness, but them just being overall bad and not really caring and not really following the rules and respecting the teachers and sometimes even the parents as well. Not saying I did that, but just kind of just messing around like little kids do. So now, if I have to give a ranking or like an opinion on what I think about each grade of elementary, or at least as far as in America, and also my opinion of just the best ones of elementary, I would say so far probably. So now, if I had to get my best ranking of what I think the grades would be in order, I think going from best would probably be kindergarten. Then it would probably honestly be sixth grade because it's the ending one, and I feel like at that point you kind of realize like what goes on. So then you like want to get to that next levels of like middle school and stuff like that. Then I would probably say fourth. Then I would say second. Then I would say fifth, and then I would say first. And yeah, in my opinion, only because of the fact that I think that the starting and the ending are the two best. And then personally, for me, first grade was the worst. That was the worst experience I've had since pretty much COVID started, as far as schooling is concerned. So yeah. And then I think second and third are kind of neutral, and then I think like I was saying, fourth is kind of when you enter the upper. So that's the reason why I think that that's one's definitely one of the top ones as well. I have to say, okay, I think kindergarten, like I said, you're pretty much just a little kid, you just like playing, you're starting to kind of realize that you're alive and stuff like that. And you start really developing knowledge. You're around other kids, you like playing, like messing around. Then I feel like first is when you really start to learn and stuff like that. I mean, you start to kind of grasp the basic subjects. You're starting to kind of understand what it is: math, language arts, science, PE. Then second is when you're like, okay, now I kind of have a grasp of it in a way, like I do know the basics of it. Then I think when you hit third is when it's starting to kind of like click, and then it's starting to become a tiny bit more advanced because you've already spent at least a good 2 years already on it. And I think, like I said, I think at that point you kind of are a little bit more. You're like 8, 9, so you're not as little now. Now there's certain things that you do for yourself and stuff like that. Probably not as much as you will when you get older, but still something. It's not your parent doing everything for you. Now you can probably communicate with them. Then when you hit fourth grade, that's when things kind of change because you enter the upper grade. So now you're kind of aware of the more quote unquote advanced. You're pretty much in the advanced basic section of subjects and learning and stuff like that. At least for me, that's how I feel like it was. Again, like going off of being in America. And then I think, like you said, once you get to that stage, it's like, okay, now I'm like 9, 10. And so, like I say, as sports and like really doing stuff like that becomes really apparent and stuff like that. And also, like I said, just other things, you start getting more into, I guess, fashion or, for the most part, like I said, you start learning about it, not really getting into it, but I'll say learning about it. So then, yeah, I'll say that's the difference. It's a little bit more of an understanding of rules and responsibilities. That's why third grade was like, second grade, it was like barely. And then first grade, it was like not at all, pretty much. And then kindergarten, don't even talk about kindergarten. Then fifth grade, like I said, I think since you're like in the middle of about to be over with school, you kind of understand the advanced basics of the subjects and stuff like that. And now, depending on who you are, you might even want to do more than that. You might already be like, I'm ready for middle school and stuff like that. You're still like 10, 11. So, it's still kind of the growing stage and stuff like that. But it's pretty much the same as fourth, just a little different for the most part. And then sixth, I think is when everything changed. Because then for some people, that's when it starts to go through puberty. And I think that it's kind of like you're pretty much, like I said, it's like being in high school. It's like being at the campus. It's like being the oldest one. So those are like that's your first time kind of experiencing that. And I know a lot of people at that stage have little siblings who are there at the school with them, on the campus and stuff like that. And again, you're pretty much at the most advanced portion of basic learning. Like I said, you're probably like 11, 12. You probably are a big brother, a big sister. And then, like I said, you probably grasp it now, and you're kind of ready for middle school. Like, so you're starting to actually grasp. You're trying to get into fashion instead of learning about it. You're getting into it. Like I said, and you're starting to learn a little more. You do understand rules. I mean, for the most part, I would say actually not even for the most part. Sort of, you kind of sort of understand rules and responsibilities. I feel like even into high school, certain kids don't really understand certain things about all that, so it's kind of different. But that's pretty much a basic sum down of what I think it's like. If I even miss anything, then I'm sorry, but for the most part, that's how I kind of feel about it. I feel like it kind of varies from person to person, but that's pretty much what I think about it. And that's it, though, as far as how I feel about elementary schools and my opinions on the grades and stuff like that. And yeah. Also, right now, one more thing I just want to add to elementary school things. I swear I will never understand why they have the kids do so many presentations. Like, I understand you want them to kind of learn how to build and craft and stuff like that. But for me, that was really the worst part of the elementary school experience. And honestly was borderline like I couldn't even like do them because of just my situation. I feel like it's very favorited towards certain kids, if you get what I mean, as far as like money and other things. So the presentation thing, I will never understand. I do not like about schools. I think maybe just from my experience alone, that's the reason why I don't like them. But even still, I feel like for the most part, I don't really understand them to a certain extent. I feel like they made you do too many of them for the short amount of time because you would do presentations back when you were in like the second grade, third grade, and you really need help from your parents. So imagine not getting help from your parents and then you not really even having like the supplies to do it or even really knowing how to do it. So yeah, those really my worst assignments. I never really did good on those, and when I did, I got very lucky. So that is one thing I will say I do not like about elementary schools, and that's honestly what make that experience so bad. Because other than that, I feel like it really wasn't all as bad as I was making it seem. I think that was just the main thing, the presentations. I hated those. I still do, but I really hated those back then. Really, really, really.